Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Rally headquarters here in Harrogate, which is just gently winding down after 4 days of perhaps the most competitive Lombard RAC ever. More A-seeded drivers than ever before, and a colossal battle for the World Drivers' Championship between the holder, Carlos Sainz in a Toyota, and the challenger, Juha Kankkunen in a Lancia. Only seconds separated these two great drivers as they fought it out over stage after stage, until eventually the Spanish driver's engine blew up, leaving Kankkunen to run in a clear winner. His second Lombard RAC, his third World Drivers' Championship. There was still all to play for last Sunday morning. Over 37 special stages, 351 stage miles, as the tense and nervous drivers came to the start line on a clear but grey morning. Alan Douglas takes up the story of the Great Yorkshire Showground.
Sunday is traditionally spectator day with a series of relatively easy stages, but Carlos Sainz was certainly taking it seriously. He's had a magnificent year with success around the world. He began steadily through the showground at Harrogate and stayed there to the fourth stage through the splendid grounds of Chatsworth House, but he found the going very slippy, made worse by a minor brake problem. His rival Juha Kankkunen also made a steady if bumpy start. A sparkling drive put the leadership firmly in his hands, completing the longest stage of the day, 4 seconds ahead of the previous leader Marco Alén. Kenneth Eriksson is one of the bright young breed of Scandinavians who are making their name in World Championship rallying, in this case for the Mitsubishi team. He was in command of the four-wheel drive Galant for the second year running. Pride of place in the opening stages went to Marco Alén. He's soared into the lead on the first stage and held on until here at Chatsworth. 40-year-old Timo Salonen has been rallying for 21 years, but even he makes the odd mistake. Like here on the Clumber stage.
It's good. What's in those tires?
Stig Blomqvist is another Scandinavian veteran driving for the first time this year the new Nissan, and up to 4th place after the opening stages. And a truly remarkable performance by the 23-year-old British champion Colin McRae, putting his mark firmly on the leaderboard and maintaining the honour of the rallying McRae family. Things were going less well though for Malcolm Wilson, one of a trio of Ford drivers this year. He reported problems with the cooling system in his car, but was still in the top 10. Another Ford man is Welshman Gwyndaf Evans, his car already bearing scars and engine smoke finding its way into the cockpit. He was worried that the head gasket was about to fail.
You seem to find Gwyndaf's bodywork very entertaining.
No, I'm thinking I'm very lucky that I haven't got the same, to be honest. We had a huge moment on Special Stage 2, Clumber Park. Hannu just spun in front of us. I mean, I didn't see him, but I mean, I saw all the black marks. And he said he was doing 150 kilometres an hour backwards. And I got on the radio to warn Gwyndaf because I think it was just the fact that we didn't have the tyres actually warm enough and the rear end was very, very light. And the first corner we had it as flat left or something in 6th gear, and it just stepped out of line. I mean, my car went on the grass, and I mean, very, very lucky to get away with it.
So you actually took time in the stage to radio back to Gwyndaf and tell him there are problems?
No, once we got to the end of the stage, I'm not that good.
The super special stage at Donington was a new experience, even for old hands like Marco Alén. Instead of a 2-minute gap between the lead cars, they were launched off every 20 seconds. Rally drivers really see each other on the stage. Now they were racing almost head-to-head. Carlos Sainz kept his sights firmly on the task in hand and clocked the 3rd fastest time. But the Italian star Mickey Biasion was well off the leader's pace. And it was a less than happy stage for our own world champion, Louise Aitken-Walker. She'd been plagued with gearbox problems all day. Sutton Park is a slick 3.8 miles of asphalt, very fast. Colin McRae had his tail up after his quick time at Donington and was really pressing Carlos very hard. Despite his lower starting position, back at 21, he still managed to clip fully 4 seconds off the Spanish driver's time to grab 3rd place. Meanwhile, Juha Kankkunen had been steadily closing on Marco Alén in the Subaru, and at Sutton Park, he pressed on to take a 1-second lead.
The end of the day, the first easy day, and the battle lines had been drawn. Kankkunen was at the head of the field, but only by 5 seconds. The most stunning drive had come from the leading home entry Colin McRae in his Subaru, showing his two world-class teammates of Vatanen and Alain just how to tackle these British stages. A battery of lights for Malcolm Wilson as he headed home. And David Llewellyn was pleased with the Nissan, performing well on its first world-class event.
Well, you're looking happy, you.
No, yes, it was. But today was all right because I didn't do any mistakes and not any main problems, so it's good.
So the plan of campaign is working?
Yeah, it's working, you know, because I'm always a bit scared. I like some auto stages today, but scared that I do something stupid, you know, hit something pole or destroy the car, but now it's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to Roy Bradford for standing in, much appreciated. He never normally stays down.
Well done, Colin, what a day.
Yeah, it's been quite good. As long as tomorrow goes as well, I'll be quite happy.
How does it feel to be sandwiched between Kankkunen and Sainz?
Well, it's difficult, really, because we're a bit further back, obviously. I think if we were running right up beside them, then it would feel a bit different.
I mean, have you had any problems at all?
No, we did a couple of spins this morning, just with the road getting so dirty, with the cars cutting corners, and it was very slippy, and we spun twice, but after that, no problems.
So, at the end of day one, where once again these so-called Mickey Mouse stages have proved to be remarkably difficult, Kankkunen was the overnight leader, but only a handful of seconds ahead of Colin McRae, who'd had a blinder all day, with Carlos Sainz content to be 8 seconds away in third place. Day two was Welsh Forest Day, 12 special stages, 125 miles of mud and gravel with the rain beating down and the cloud low over the trees. The Welsh forests are demanding at the best of times, but after heavy rain and in the dark, they become a nightmare. The overnight leader Kankkunen chose the path of caution rather than speed, but still managed to hang on to his #1 position. Young Colin McRae, after his stunning performance on the first day, couldn't quite sustain the challenge of champion Sainz, who recaptured the #2 position. None of the drivers enjoyed the early morning introduction to the bleak Welsh weather. Most of them preferred to keep their thoughts to themselves. But Kankkunen perhaps summed up their collective feelings.
How was that, Juha?
Slippery.
Are you glad to be in the forest?
Oh, it's okay, but still a bit slippery, so it takes for a while to get used to again this muddy road.
Did you beat Carlos there?
I don't know.
Yes, 3 seconds.
3 seconds?
With the approach of daylight, the drivers could see more clearly where they were going, but the conditions were getting worse. The morning rain had produced mud, but Sainz was charging. With his brake discs glowing on one stage, he was 7 seconds faster than Kankkunen. On Hafren, he assumed control at the head of the field, 17 seconds ahead of Kankkunen. But there was a new threat from the Lancia of Didier Auriol. He'd climbed steadily up the field and was now challenging Sainz, just 2 seconds behind. Kenneth Eriksson's exhaust on his Mitsubishi was hanging off, and he'd been slowed by a puncture. Now the turbo was causing concern. This is the twice world champion Mickey Biasion, making only his second attempt on the RAC after third place last year. David Llewellyn clung on in the top 10 and only just got through the Hafren stage with a broken drive shaft. And misfortune for the other British hopes. On home ground, Gwyndaf Evans had engine problems and was continuing to modify the Ford's bodywork. It was a bad day too for Malcolm Wilson. He stopped in the middle of Hafren with seized transmission after a spin and was forced to retire. And this is his final moment in the RAC rally, captured by our in-car camera.
Left Max Long, continues over crest.
And fellow Cumbrian Dave Metcalf was also finding the conditions difficult in his Nova.
The last stage we've just done there was really, really rough. There was a long straight and it just cut out till there was really deep holes, and the car was just smashing out on the front end and standing on the back, and it really was rough. It was so rough it chucked it out of gear a couple of times. And it doesn't do the car a lot of good, and it doesn't do my back a lot of good, to be honest.
In the classic Welsh stages in Dyfi, the conditions seemed ideal for Didier Auriol. The fast sweeping bends let him use the immense power of the Lancia, and it was reflected in his stage times. In stage 16, he was 14 seconds faster than Kankkunen in the same machinery, gaining almost a second a mile. After 2 stages in that form, he took over the leadership. Colin McRae continued to drive absolutely flat out. With another fastest time delighted his fans, even though his earlier spin had set him back in 4th place. "31-year-old Welsh farmer David Llewellyn saw his first Lombard RAC for Nissan end on the 16th stage, after a fault in the main electrical cutout switch. The crew frantically searched to find the problem, but eventually they retired out of time. And the popular bus driver Gwyndaf Evans in a Ford Cosworth suffered his 3rd crash of the day on the same stage. The car was badly damaged and his rally was over. So just how bad were the conditions in Wales? Our camera on board the Mitsubishi Galant of Timo Salonen gives some idea. Mark Dewitt, the Belgian, was lying 15th in his Toyota Celica and holding his own in these conditions, whilst the young Finn Tommy Mäkinen in a Mazda had had punctures, a series of spins and continuing gearbox problems, but he still held on to 17th overall. 23-year-old Scott Robbie Head had completed 1 stage in 3rd gear after breaking the gearbox, and he'd had 2 punctures. But he was still chasing the Group N or showroom class awards in his Cosworth. And top lady Louise Aitken-Walker lost time when she stopped to help Malcolm Wilson after his breakdown, who held on to 18th overall.
How was that then?
Absolute a nightmare.
Why?
It's such a good stage. It's such a good stage to drive on, and you're going no problem. And then all of a sudden, just this grease will hit you on one corner and just cuts you out, you know.
The final stages proved disastrous for Auriol. He'd held the lead for 4 stages, but a spin on the second last cost him the overnight lead. That went to Carlos Sainz, who now rests overnight in Chester with a 12-second advantage. And the final stages were unlucky for Kankkunen. His front differential broke at the end of the 19th stage, but he's still 3rd overall. Francois Delacour had been lying 9th when he had an unfortunate experience in Penmachno.
The problem with the extinctor, after a big jump, the extinctor is common in the car.
The fire extinguisher?
Yeah, the fire extinctor. And the engine's got, impossible to continue, and I lost 2 minutes.
But another superb day for Colin McRae, a taste of the leadership, and he capped it with fastest time on the final stage of the day.
It was darkness when the cars came into Wales this morning, and it's pitch black again now when they're leaving. It's been a day of mud, glorious mud, and this final control of the day is no exception.
Not the last stage, the stage before, I go little off the road because I arrive in the long left. In the finish, it's mad, maximum mad, and I don't know that. And the car understeering, and I go little off the road, and I come back. And after I say, okay, it's too much difficult. It's too easy to do big mistake here with the mud, and I prefer to try to finish for this evening.
Dear, what happened, Mickey?
I rolled.
How long were you off the road?
Then 2-3 laps. Okay, it's happened.
So how much time have you lost?
I retired.
You're out?
Yes,
out. Oh dear, very sorry to lose you. What sort of a day have you had, Carlos?
Long day. No, okay, we have only 1 puncture and we ran 1 kilometer only. It was 1 kilometer to the end of 1 stage, so we didn't lose so much time and everything is working okay.
It's been a very close battle, hasn't it, today?
It has been, yeah, and still it will be.
So at the end of day 2, Carlos Sainz had taken over the lead with the Lancias of Auriol and Kankkunen snapping at his heels.